abuse, drug trafficking, human trafficking. And when we've gone in to do those operations, we have not had the backup of local law enforcement. We've not able to have leaders that have walked alongside of us in support of securing their communities and been there for ICE agents that are out there putting their lives on the line to help secure and get these bad criminals off their streets. And those individuals are protecting them with their decisions, their political rhetoric. They're also filing lawsuits against us and the authorities that we're exercising to try to jam us up in court rather than giving us the opportunity to go out there and really follow through on what our commitment has been to this country. So the sanctuary jurisdictions have been fighting this administration in trying to do what the American people asked President Trump to do in November, and that was to make their communities safe again. I will tell you that when I've been out on the front lines with many of these agents, when they've been doing operations in the early morning sweeping up criminals, they are doing the hard work, and many times in partnership with local law enforcement in cities. So we appreciate that partnership and where we can get it. In sanctuary cities, it becomes much more of an operation that has to have more people. We have to commit more ICE agents, more federal officers there because the local community has not, and the leadership there has not been supportive. And then also, I would say it makes it more dangerous. We have seen violence against our ICE officers go up over 300%. And I think that's because of the rhetoric out there by local mayors and governors who have, put out misinformation and perpetuated lies about law enforcement and what they're trying to do to help communities. I remember the morning I was in New York City, we were conducting ICE operations on known criminals that were guilty of violent abuses and breaking the law. We had community members that were walking by on the street that were taking their kids to school, and when they would walk by, they would say, "Thank you. Thank you for being here." Yet their leadership was not there to support and back up our operations. So I would ask people in these communities to challenge their mayors, challenge their governors to come to the table and to help us, because I don't know of anybody who wanted to raise their kids in a community that was filled with criminals, where it wasn't safe to go out at night and where they couldn't walk their kids to school and not have to worry about if they were going to get there safely.
Thank you. I'm going to switch topics really quick in the short amount of time we have left. Tariffs.
Yes.
We both come from agricultural states. I fully recognize the importance of tariffs to help level the playing field and provide a fair opportunity for our producers to compete on world market. But I also remember in 2018 retaliatory tariffs on agricultural products, which felt the brunt of those efforts. Could you talk just a little bit, if I could, without putting you, it's not a gotcha question, but I just wanted to express the concern that agriculture doesn't need any more challenges right now. Could you talk a little bit about some of the conversations maybe that you're having at the executive level about retaliation?
Yeah, thank you for that. I've worked on food policy for 30 years. So I not only am a farmer and a rancher, but I immediately started working on state and federal programs, and I recognized that our food policy in this country is a national security issue. And keeping farmers out on the land, producing our food, is imperative to making sure that we can feed ourselves. And another country doesn't control us by controlling our food supply. So President Trump recognizes this, and we've spoken for hours about the importance of having farmers here in this country growing our food and having many farmers, not allowing just one or two big companies or conglomerates control that supply, because it makes food affordable and available to every single American. The President Trump, if you remember back during that period of time, was there for farmers. He helped them with assistance when those retaliatory tariffs came into place. And he recognizes that this negotiation that we're having now with these countries has to happen to level the playing field. We've been treated unfairly in trade agreements for many, many years. When I was in Congress, I served on the Ways and Means Committee, which many people refer to as the committee that has the most ways it can be mean, because it has taxes and trade and tariffs and all the different jurisdictions as far as what can happen. But I would say specifically, working on trade agreements while I was there, I recognized how we could come to a trade agreement and facilitate that. But then we also would, as soon as our shipments of soybeans hit the shores of China, they would reject it for different sanctions or regulations such as sanitary or phytosanitary reasons and would manipulate how they interpreted those agreements and didn't adhere to them anyways. So President Trump is all in to make sure that we rectify the wrongs of the past and make sure that we're treated fairly and get our jobs back home here in America. So far, CBP has collected over $32 billion worth of tariffs since April 2nd has gone into place. And they've adjusted and done that, and these countries are feeling the pain enough that they're coming to the table and having negotiations with this administration to make sure that we're treated fairly and our farmers and ranchers are treated fairly in the future.
Appreciate that, Mr. Chairman. I will yield back.
You don't have any time to yield back.
I know,
Thank
sorry.
you. The gentlelady from Hawaii, the floor is yours for 5 minutes.
Texas.
Texas. Well, you know, it went so long.
Not
you
even
might wanna double
close,
check that.
Chairman.
There might be an ocean coming there from a different direction. The floor is yours for 5 minutes for follow-up questions, as long as they're not like Mr. Newhouse's. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. Madam Secretary, I have a question related to something more close to home for me in the community in El Paso with DHS employees. For decades, CBP employees who work at our land ports of entry have been contractually allowed by CBP to have an off-site location for their union. And this off-site location is completely funded by union dues, not by taxpayer money. And again, this was something agreed to in their contract. I was shocked and alarmed to learn that they were told by DHS they could no longer be off-site, and they were forced to come into a DHS facility in El Paso. It's a conference room, media training room. So that part of their contract, that longstanding agreement, was violated in my eyes. Are you aware of this at all?
I have heard about it, but I don't know the details of that agreement, so I can follow up with you and get that back to you. And if you would lay out the concerns for being co-located, I think that would be fantastic for me to know.
We will. We'll make sure to communicate with your team. Would love to work with you on this. The same has not been true for the Border Patrol Union. So there's disparate treatment, and additionally, just to very quickly lay out why it's important for union members to be able to speak to their union leaders in private, and being located in a small conference room, media training room, offers no privacy. There are other issues, but I look forward to working with you on that.
I do know that, the difference in the two unions is important, and I'll look into how those were interpreted. And I also know that the one union is located under the Treasury Union as well, and that defines some requirements and for how it's regulated and set out going forward. So I'll see if that is the determining factor on why there was a difference in how the locations were determined.
And I would ask, Madam Secretary, that you please allow the El Paso Union to continue to be housed off-site. It is their preference, doesn't impact the budget or appropriations. They pay for it. So I don't see a reason why this long-standing, decades-long situation should be changed. So would ask for your support for that, please.
I'll look into it.
Okay, perfect. I also wanted to ask you about this NBC News story, and I'll enter into the record this article as well. U.S. citizen family traumatized after ICE raided their Oklahoma home in search of someone else. And according to the local affiliate, KFOR, which was reporting on this story, immigration agents raided the home last week. They had a search warrant for the home, but the suspects listed on the warrant were no longer living in the home. The family was forced to wait outside in the rain during the search. A mother and her girls, all U.S. citizens. Their money was taken, their laptop, their cell phone. I asked you at the top of our first round if you believed it was important for DHS and if you would attest to the fact that DHS needs to rectify any mistakes. If this were a mistake, will you ensure that this family, this U.S. citizen family, gets its property back in a timely manner?
Well, in that particular situation, the warrant for that situation was on the house and the facility, not on the individuals that were there. And so that house was being used for human smuggling. And so those
a
operations
prior,
were conducted against the facility. And even in that situation, there was some individuals there with the same last names and some of the similarities.
But
And
if
so
it
we
were a
are-
mistake,
we are
Madam
continuing-
Secretary,
We
if it
believe
were a
everything was
mistake.
done appropriately, and we'll continue to make sure that it is done and handled appropriately.
All right, well, appreciate you looking into it, that not my constituents, but you had mentioned in your testimony, and you've said previously, that the focus of your agency is to go after the worst of the worst, people who are here illegally. But we have seen reporting and spoken to individuals, we meaning Congress, that in fact, there have been abuses on that front. People with legal protections have been deported. I laid out in the first round, U.S. citizen children. I don't know, and I asked, and you said you'd get back to me about whether parents actually filled out the ICE forms that are normally used for those processes. U.S. citizen families with nothing to do with human trafficking, and now DHS employees as well, in my view, have been subjected to an abuse of power. And we all swore an oath to the Constitution. This is a democratic republic. Rule of law is important, due process is important, and ultimately that will be my North Star, not just in this hearing, but throughout everything that I work on as a member of Congress. I thank you, Madam Secretary, and Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
I want to thank the member, and I want you to know that during the course of your questioning, we have moved your district back into Texas. Everything's good.
My flight is shorter now as a result. Thank you.
I was just hoping you weren't paying attention. I thought the folks out on the islands could use some help, but we'll go on from there. Mr. Siscomani, the floor is yours for your second round of questioning.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Secretary, so the first set of questions that I had were more on the security side. I want to shift gears a little bit. Matter of fact, I just guided a group of freshman members on the Republican side to the border in Arizona with the intention that they see the full picture of the border. We have obviously the security aspect that has been key as central to the conversation, that we have trade and commerce at the border, and we've got immigration as well going on. So it's important that I think my colleagues and everyone that is maybe not from a border district can understand that there's a lot more that happens at the border than just one aspect of it. I call it the three buckets of the conversation around the border. So with that in mind, that as an immigrant myself, I know how complex the immigration system is. I became a citizen in 2006, and then 16 years later, I became a member of Congress. No other country in the world will give you that opportunity. I believe in the American dream and fighting for that American dream that so many people still seek. There's been much media attention again on the increase in deportations and removal of aliens, which I remain fully supportive of. That being said, I think we should also be highlighting and incentivizing those who are going through the process legally and those that are seeking to come to the country through the legal channels, and make that process less burdensome in order to disincentivize the use of cartels and bad actors. In my family's experience, it took us 13 years from the moment we came into the U.S. to the moment we became U.S. citizens. There have to be some improvements around these guidelines. So can you speak on how your budget request will facilitate easier legal pathways for potential immigrants?
Yeah, absolutely. And you've correctly identified part of the problem that we've had in this country for many, many years is that it takes far too long for a person to legally come through our immigration process and to become a U.S. citizen. And that needs to be fixed, and that was broken when I was here on the Hill, and it was broken when I was governor, and I still see as the Department of Homeland Security Secretary that is an issue that needs to be solved. We need to make sure that we're getting more immigration judges. I've been having conversations with our Attorney General, Pam Bondi, and with the Department of Justice on what we can do to get more judges to the table so that we can process not just backlogged claims, but illegal applications to come to this country as well, and then more immigration courts. So when you look at not just the fiscal year 26 request, but also reconciliation dollars, it is to address the needs that we have to address the invasion, secure the border, to make sure that our ICE officers have enough backup, help, equipment, and tools going forward to make sure that we're addressing what has happened here criminally and illegally, but also addressing within our other agencies what we can do to make sure that we're processing those legal applications and getting that taken care of. President Trump is determined to do that, and we have that addressed in the budget request from the different cabinet secretaries and agencies to make sure we have the resources to start getting after that backlog.
Excellent, excellent. You know, on the same topic of when we look at immigration and we look at workforce as well, those are very much attached. I just had Secretary Lori Chavez Dreamer in Tucson yesterday. We visited different sites that work on this. We spoke at length about the need for more robust workforce programs and ways to ensure that workforce needs meet our communities' needs. Still, the utmost constant thing I hear from industry of what they need is workforce. Can you speak to any plans the administration has to create additional avenues to meet these through immigration, potentially?
So you're talking about meeting workforce needs?
Yeah,
as far as
workforce
through
needs,
visas and green
yeah.
cards? I would say that the president recognizes the value in what we've had in programs in the past, but also recognized how they've been misused. And how Congress many times lays their prerogative on how many are authorized, how many are directed, through law that the Secretary has the latitude to issue, and will continue to work with you to find solutions that really meet the needs that we have in this country. The President believes that we have a workforce here that deserves jobs, that pay very well with benefits and a future here in the United States of America, but also that we need to continue to keep the American dream open for immigrants who want to come here legally. So having the opportunity to make sure we're doing thorough vetting of people and partnering with other countries and having access to their background checks to make sure they can participate in our visa programs is very important. And as long as we have the ability to do that and continue to know who's coming here, why they're here, and if they have the opportunity to become citizens, then it's something that would be a benefit to this country if the president recognizes that the need is there.
I think that's very well put. I think having that balance always of making sure our border is secure, we know who's coming in, that opens the door and allows us to focus on the immigration system that works for the people coming in, but primarily for our citizens and what the country needs. And that has to do with workforce as well. So with that, thank you so much for partnering with us on that and finding multiple solutions to this problem in different areas at the same time. Is not easy, but you're doing a masterful job. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
And with that, I yield back, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, or Vice Chairman, for not challenging the Dan Newhouse Award. And now I'd like to recognize the gentleman from, she's gone, from Texas. Mr. Gonzalez, the floor is yours for a second round.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Madam Secretary. Some could argue you have one of the toughest jobs in Washington, right? We had Elon show up with 2 hats. Maybe you should have shown up with 3 hats, right? Part of DHS that I worry about is it's a Swiss Army knife of the federal government. Seems like everything is in there. And we alluded to this earlier. How did DHS start? It started after 9/11 when Islamic extremists murdered Americans. And so I worry. We covered a lot of topics today. And I know the border gets a lot of attention, and I know there's a lot going on in the cyberspace. But I think back to some of the fundamentals. And I think back to 9/11, and I worry. I go, I look ahead, and I see, the World Cup coming our way, and I see the Olympics coming our way. I want us to make sure that we're not only focused on today, but we're also focused on tomorrow. Please keep that at the forefront of it. At the end of the day, right now we're feeding tomahawks to Houthis every day in Yemen, and it reminds me a whole lot of pre-9/11, right? I spent 5 years in Iraq and Afghanistan. No one knew about Al-Qaeda. No one knew where Afghanistan was on a map. It's very eerily similar, and the American people are really counting on you to make sure we're safe. On that note, DHS has lost its way over the last course of the last several years in their last administration, and I want to flag for you an office in particular, the Office of Immigration Detention Ombudsman. I mean, this was literally an office funded by taxpayer dollars that had billboards up that, and I quote, said throughout Texas, said, "Your brother in immigration custody has rights. We're here to help." I mean, it's complete nonsense. And once again, where are our taxpayer dollars going? So as you're, you're off to a very fast start, much appreciated. But as you're going through these and you're tackling these different, please look at that program.
Yeah.
You know, I know in our fiscal year 25 budget, we zeroed that out, but unfortunately, we couldn't get that over the finish line. So I'd ask for you to really take a look at that.
Congressman, we have looked at that already. We have recognized the abuses that happened, and many times that office was perpetuated on suing themselves and coming up. We've put them back to what the size that they should be and addressed how it was misused and abused, and will continue to do so into the future to make sure that that isn't weaponized against the American people in the future.
Thank you for that. And I also want to thank you for something that is working. These HSI-led task forces work. You've seen it all throughout the country. It's how do we pool our resources? This isn't a federal issue. It isn't a state issue. It isn't a local issue. It's all of us. We're all in on this together. And in my experience, those task forces really work. So when it comes to funding, when it comes to legislation, once again, please, if you would, they're working. I'm hearing it from constituents all over the country. My good friend Juan Ciscomani, I know it's working in Arizona. It's certainly working in Texas. And then the other thing I want to mention is Stone Garden funding. Once again, this is something, it's an area that I believe is a force multiplier. It gives funding to our local is discouraging local law enforcement from being involved. Maybe that's something we can tackle together. I'd love to hear your ideas, not now, but as you work through things on how we can, once again, make sure that our programs are working for the American people, not against us.
I agree. Yeah, I think that'd be fantastic. I've heard it's a highly effective program, and if there's ways to get more participants and streamline.
Chairman, I yield back my minute of time.
Thank you.
Thank you for being a leader. The chair now recognizes the ranking member of the entire committee with an excellent sense of patience. The gentlelady from Connecticut, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman, and Ranking Member unveiled a thinly veiled propaganda ad about border security. This is about $200 million paid for by American taxpayers, I might add. And the ads are supposedly about border security, but honestly, if you see the ad, it's like a political ad, and all of us know what political ads look like. Even the conservative Cato Institute says the ads are a perfect example of wasteful government spending that DOJ should cut. I also might add that, and this is a direct quote, and Madam Secretary, it says that earlier this year, that President Trump had instructed you on how to fashion the campaign. He said, and again I quote, "I want you in the ads. I want your face in the ads," Noem recalled at the Conservative Political Action Conference, adding that Trump told her for the first ad, quote, "I want you to thank me for closing the border." Now, that's politics. Quite frankly, at its worst. I understand that on April 30th, your department awarded an additional $6.7 million to a political consulting company called People Who Think, bringing their total award for this ad to $11.6 million. Your department has also awarded $35.5 million for this ad to a company called Safe American Media. And my understanding is that you used funding originally appropriated for CBP and USCIS for these awards. This sounds like a payout to Republican political consultants to fund ads that do more to tout the president than to secure the border. How were the contracts awarded? Competitive process? If so, why is USA Spending say that the contracts were given an exclusion from the DOJ group's limitation on spending awards? This is $200 million. Somebody just talked about billboards. This is a $200 million ad campaign, taking the money from CBP and USCIS to promote a political advantage. It's really kind of the height of arrogance. You're looking for more money from us to do that, but you're going to take a portion of the money that we have given you, and you're going to spend it on political advertising. I mean, that really is, in Yiddish, the word is chutzpah. It really is, that you know, engaged in here. So I know you're going to tell
like
me.
me to answer?
Yeah, I would. And I foresee that you're going to tell me that these were all competitively bid.
They were.
Et cetera. You know,
Done through the exact same process as any other ad campaign would be done, absolutely. And I would tell you that it's not $200 million, and that President Trump was very clear from the very beginning that he recognized that the fake news in this country was not going to tell the truth of what the work had been done at the border to secure this country. And these ads aren't only playing in the United States, they're playing in other countries
Sure. No,
where we
I
had the largest
understand. It's not the
invasion
point.
coming
You can
into
agree
this
or
country
disagree on
from.
the policies,
And
but it's just-
overwhelmingly, if you look at the data on the ground in these countries where these ads have been
with all
playing,
due respect-
the flow has stopped.
with all due respect-
Even when I was in Mexico and having
Excuse me, Madam
conversations.
Secretary, the
Yes.
time is mine. With all due respect, this is a political ad campaign, and it really, let's just not try to sugarcoat it. I had just somebody talk about billboards, and you talking about how use of taxpayers' dollars. These are taxpayers' dollars as well. Let me move to the program I mentioned earlier. This is the BRIC program. In early April, FEMA cut the Building Resilient Infrastructure and Communities program, claiming, and I quote, "Under Secretary Noem, DHS is eliminating waste